When we examine the origins of ancient Indian scholarship, our historical lens almost always settles on the north. We see the red brick excavations of Nalanda and assume we are looking at the singular titan of the era. But focusing exclusively on the Ganges Plain leaves a geographic blind spot. It ignores a parallel, equally formidable epicenter of higher learning located in the deep south. This was Kanchipuram, the seat of the Pallava Empire. Known in the texts as Nagareshu Kanchi, the greatest of cities, it was a cosmopolitan hub of education that stood as a peer to any institution on the planet. The city was organized into distinct quarters, each hosting a specialized academic community: Shaiva Kanchi, Vaishnava Kanchi, Jaina Kanchi, and Buddha Kanchi. This high-density collision of competing worldviews meant that scholars weren't just writing in isolation. They were debating in a social laboratory where ideas were constantly tested against statecraft and royal ambition. The engine of the city was the Elite Ghatika. This was an elite institution of higher learning, directly funded by the Pallava kings, and reserved for the most advanced Brahmanical studies. The reality of life inside the Ghatika is preserved in the 5th century Talagunda Punnar inscription, which tells the story of a scholar named Mayura Sharman. Mayura Sharman arrived at the city with his guru, seeking to master the complexities of the Vedas within the prestigious Kanchi curriculum. His quiet life of study was interrupted by a fierce, humiliating quarrel with the Pallava horse cavalry. This wasn't a minor disagreement, it was a physical confrontation with the state's military elite. Mayura Sharman reached a sharp conclusion. In this age, if a scholar strived only for religious learning, his holiness remained entirely dependent on the whims of kings. He turned to the martial skills he had acquired alongside his scriptures, traded his palm leaf manuscripts for a heavy sword, and violently carved out a sovereign empire of his own, the Kadamba dynasty. A curriculum that could produce a successful rebel king suggests the Ghatika was far from a quiet sanctuary for theory. It was a training ground for the tools of hard power. While the Ghatika produced warrior scholars, Buddha Kanchi offered a different kind of scale. We see it through the eyes of the Chinese traveler Xuanzang, who visited the city in the 7th century. Xuanzang documented 10,000 monks studying Mahayana philosophy, supported by a network of 100 monasteries within the city's influence. Nearby, Jaina Kanchi functioned as a premier Vedyasthana, a center of higher knowledge for Digambar Jains. Inscriptions dating back to 550 CE show the Pallava kings securing this tradition with extensive land grants. The Pallava state successfully maintained these contradictory doctrines simultaneously, creating a bureaucracy that could fund competing religions without fracturing the city's social order. Because of this environment, Kanchipuram became a primary launchpad for global ideological export. Scholars like Dignaga and Dharmapala mastered Kanchi's logic before moving north. Dignaga transformed the rules of Buddhist reasoning, while Dharmapala's reputation eventually led him to the head of Nalanda itself. Then there is Bodhidharma, a Pallava prince turned monk who left the Kanchi court for China. By synthesizing the martial arts of the Pallava court with intense dhyana, or meditation, he laid the foundations for Zen Buddhism and the martial traditions of the Shaolin Temple. These alumni took regional academic refinements and turned them into continent-spanning religious and cultural movements. In 731 CE, the academic weight of Kanchipuram collided directly with the throne when the Pallava king died without an heir. The resulting power vacuum threatened to destabilize the entire South Indian Empire as rival factions vied for control. The faction that settled the crisis wasn't the military or the landed nobility, it was the Ghatkayar, the learned scholars of the Ghatika. Leveraging their institutional authority, the scholars bypassed traditional succession to elect a 12-year-old boy, Nandivarman II, as the absolute emperor. He would go on to build the architectural masterpiece of the Vaikuntha Perumal Temple. Kanchipuram proves that ancient universities were the actual engines of the state, institutions that didn't just educate students, but forged the philosophies, martial arts, and kings that built the foundations of modern Asia.